Every woman who co-parents with a narcissist hits a moment where she whispers, "I cannot believe this is my life." That sentence is not weakness, it's recognition. It's the moment where you feel the weight of managing a person who still wants to destabilize you long after the relationship ended. You're not just healing from a partner, you're managing a parent. You're raising a child with someone who treats responsibility like a performance and conflict like a sport. Co-parenting with a narcissist doesn't feel like parenting, it feels like emotional endurance training with no finish line in sight. You're not just navigating parenting, you're navigating trauma, legalities, the fallout of someone who weaponizes communication, routines, and schedule changes to keep you on edge. And you still have to show up as the steady one for your child while the other parent behaves like stability is optional. That is a level of strength most people will never understand. But you do it anyways because you are the safe parent. You're the parent that stays consistent, the one who actually parents. I'm Megan Webster, an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and the woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast, the place where women stop living in survival mode and start rebuilding their lives from a place of truth, stability, and self-respect. This episode is for the woman who is sharing custody, navigating court orders, dealing with unpredictable communication, managing their child's emotional whiplash, and holding the emotional weight of two parents because the other one refuses to. If that's you, this episode will feel like someone is finally turning the lights on. And if your body feels on edge as the holiday season approaches, that is not anxiety, that is your system remembering. And that's exactly why I built Holiday Hell, so you have a tactical plan for the season your nervous system fears the most. And I will be sharing more about it at the end of this episode. Let's talk about the reality of co-parenting with the narcissist. This is not about collaborating, it's about managing chaos disguised as communication. You are not dealing with someone who thinks like a parent, you're dealing with someone who treats parenting as leverage. The manipulation doesn't end when the relationship ends, it just changes shape. They weaponize text messages, distort agreements, use pickup times to provoke emotional reactions, and they treat every exchange like an opportunity to reassert dominance. It's not really co-parenting, it's crisis management. And yet women still shame themselves for struggling as if this situation should be easy. You think you should stay calm, be mature, not let them get to you. But here's the truth. You are not dealing with a normal human. You're dealing with someone who prioritizes control over cooperation, who would rather win an argument than support their child, who is more invested in your emotional reaction than the child's emotional well-being. There is no healthy collaborative co-parenting with someone who cannot regulate themselves. There is only parallel parenting, and that is not coldness, that is strategy. It's choosing structure over turbulence and predictability over emotional warfare. Parallel parenting is the gift you give yourself and your child because you refuse to normalize instability. You are not being difficult, you are being strategic, and this strategy keeps your child safe from the emotional wreckage the narcissist calls parenting. One of my clients came to me exhausted, convinced that she was failing as a mother because every interaction with her ex, she spiraled into the conflict. She thought if she just explained things better, softened her tone, approached him rationally, found the right words, things would improve. But you cannot negotiate with someone who needs conflict to feel powerful. She was treating him like a co-parent when he was functioning like an adversary. When she switched modes into parallel parenting, structure, zero emotional engagement, the entire dynamic changed, not because he changed, but because she stopped playing the game. And her child became calmer because her nervous system had room to breathe. Acceptance is about you, not them. It's the hardest part of co-parenting with the narcissist, not because acceptance means defeat, it's because acceptance forces you to face the truth you wish was not real. You're not accepting abuse, you're accepting reality. You're accepting that they are who they are, consistently inconsistent, emotionally underdeveloped, incapable of accountability, and allergic to responsibility. You are accepting that they will never become the co-parent that your child deserves, and that acceptance does not make you bitter, it sets you free. The longer you argue with the reality of who they are, the more emotional energy you're going to lose. You are not tired because you are weak, you are tired because you've been trying to co-parent with a fantasy. The version of them you keep hoping for is a ghost, and ghosts do not show up on visitation weekends. Acceptance is the piece that cuts the emotional cord. It ends the internal war, and it frees you from expecting emotional intelligence from somebody who's never shown it. Acceptance doesn't make the situation better, it makes you stronger inside of it. And it's in these moments you stop expecting reciprocity and start acting from strategy. This is not an act of giving up. It's giving your nervous system permission to stop waiting for the miracle that is never coming. When you stop trying to emotionally co-parent, it will stabilize. You stop being shocked by their behavior because you finally see it for what it is. Predictable chaos is easier to navigate than hopeful denial. And when your expectations match reality, your emotional landscape becomes steady enough for your child to anchor into. Parallel parenting is not emotional distance, it's emotional protection. You're not refusing to engage, you're refusing to engage in dysfunction. You're choosing structure over chaos, clarity over confusion, and boundaries over bargaining. Parallel parenting means communication is minimal and factual. Schedules are clear and documented. There is no emotional language used. There are no explanations given, no attempts to make reason, no space left for manipulation. And it means you are no longer building the bridge with someone who keeps burning them down and blaming you for the flames. The beauty of parallel parenting is this: you stop feeding the conflict. You stop responding to every provocation. You stop acting like their emotional state is your responsibility. Treat the dynamic like a business transaction, and it's not because you're cold. It's the only way to create structure around someone who thrives in chaos. This is the moment you stop dancing with the dysfunction and start leading your own life again. And if December is the time that everything spikes, communication, tension, volatility, and shutdowns, it's exactly why I built Holiday Hell. It gives you a tactical safety plan so the holidays don't become another weapon that it uses against you. You're not rejecting cooperation, you're rejecting manipulation disguised as cooperation. Now, I do not teach the gray rock method because it makes women feel robotic, numb, disconnected, and flat, and it is very dangerous to those who have experienced physical violence. It requires you to shut down, and you have shut down enough already. Agonizes the other person, and you cannot change my mind on that. What I do teach, though, is the range method, a system built on your emotional regulation. The range method teaches you how to stay in your body without letting your emotions run wild, how to stay neutral without losing your humanity, how to respond instead of react, how to use regulation as a shield instead of a silence of armor. Using your range means you get to feel. You don't perform those feelings for the narcissist. You do not hand them emotional fuel that they want. You're unavailable for the drama, but fully available for yourself and your kids. Using my method looks like this: breathing practices before responding, slowing your pace, grounding your voice, choosing a neutral language, using strategic silence, answering only what is asked and what you're obligated to in your parenting contract so you can stay anchored in your intention, not their chaos. You have choices every single day to find sources of your own power, and it comes with being intentional. You don't have to become a stone to survive co-parenting with the narcissist. You become unshakable by staying in your body and not freezing out the fear. A lot of my clients talk about the hardest part of co-parenting. It's not the handoffs, it's not the messages or the tension, it's the silence. It's the time when your child is with the narcissist, the hours where your mind wants to spiral into fear, guilt, shame, helplessness, or hypervigilance. The hours where you feel like the absence is more than the relief. And those stretches in time can feel like an insane punishment at first because your nervous system does not yet understand what those breaks are for and where your life starts to breathe again. That empty space is not a void, it's an opening. It is a pocket of time that will allow you to rebuild the version of yourself that got buried under survival. These are the hours or days where you get to learn how to be alone without being lonely, where you can relearn the difference between peace and silence, where you can reconnect with your identity outside of motherhood and trauma. This is where you create the habits that hold you together, choosing routines that regulate your nervous system, setting rituals that remind you that your body is safe. You fill that time intentionally, not anxiously. This is not meant to be a distraction. It is reconstruction. You can use these windows for therapy, movement, journaling, meal prepping, resting, reading, building a business, anything that you've ever wanted to do. It allows you to start strengthening your support or just sitting at home and allowing it to be fully yours. The point of this is not productivity, it's presence. You have been running for a long time in survival mode, and you need to teach your nervous system what stability feels like so it can recognize safety when it arrives. Have things to do that you enjoy and fill your cup, but this is not to avoid feeling. You want to build your time from the woman who will not collapse again the next time life will test her. And your child benefits every single time you return to them regulated, replenished, and anchored. Your peace becomes their system. Your stability becomes their template for adulthood. When you decide to rebuild yourself, you are also stabilizing their emotional world at the same time. The most powerful thing that you ever teach your child is emotional safety, because they will not get it from the other parent. You become the lighthouse, the emotional translator, the place where they land when the world feels sharp. And here's the discomfort. Your child does not need a perfect home. They need a regulated one. They need somewhere where their feelings are named, not dismissed. And they need a single parent that understands the difference between misbehavior and dysregulation. All they really want is to learn how to know that emotions are not their problems, they're information. So this is something that I've done with my son Hunter before he could even speak. We practice co-regulating through breath, an emotional language that he could rely on, naming his feelings, and practicing body scans. And because of that, while he is with me, he does not have a tantrum, he doesn't have a meltdown, and he doesn't spiral without understanding why. He can articulate sensations, needs, fears, and boundaries because he's been taught that his internal world is valid. That's not luck. That's intentional generational repair. You are teaching your child the emotional skills that the narcissist cannot give them. You are teaching them how to recognize manipulation, how to trust their instincts, how to name the feelings the narcissist would push away or ignore. You are giving them a map for relationships that won't repeat the ones you escaped. Your child does not need two emotionally intelligent parents. They need one who refuses to let the cycle continue through them. And when they grow up, they will know exactly who kept them safe. There were a lot of moments in my early co-parenting journey where everything kind of fractured me at once. It was a shock that 50-50 was granted with all of the evidence and his dad being MIA for well over a year. To be told that I had to be in contact with his dad again honestly was enough to make me want to vomit. The first string of messages that came through from my ex sent shockwaves to my nervous system. It was this big, long, manipulative message designed to bait me into defending myself, and I almost did it. I was staring at the message, my hands on the keyboard, ready to justify, explain, and prove that I was not doing what he was accusing me of. But something inside of me went really still. I knew, logically, I am being judged on being a good co-parent. I had to remove how I felt, what happened to me, and remember that he will now have Hunter in his care. And this is one of the main reasons why I teach range over gray rock. Range is stable, selective form of communication that's polite and detached, and it goes wildly undetected by narcissists. I closed my eyes and I asked myself, what version of you is answering this today? I decided to not respond to the message itself, the nastiness, the manipulation. I responded to the reality, neutral, short, factual, no emotional access whatsoever, and then I put my phone away. That was a moment I realized I was not going to continue the cycle. That was the moment that co-parenting stopped being a war zone at the very beginning and it became a strategy. Is it easy? Fuck no. There are lots of moments where I want to fight back and defend myself and give him my exact opinion, but I do not live there anymore. I am not the wife of an abuser. I am not a victim, and I do not engage in unwell behavior. Our contact is to communicate about our son. Otherwise, this man does not exist to me. And I think that boundaries are the hardest part about co-parenting because maintaining them is exhausting. You're juggling work, parenting, healing, court documents, emotional regulation, and their unpredictability. It's easy to slip. It's easy to respond reactively. It's easy to forget the plan. But boundaries do not come from perfection. They come from consistency. They don't need to be flawless. They just need to be steady and neutral. Your boundaries are valid even on the days that you're tired, even when you have to reassert them, even when he tries to bulldoze them. Boundaries are not requests. They are decisions. If the holidays are when your boundaries feel the thinnest, when exhaustion hits the hardest, when guilt rises, when routines blow up, that is exactly the moment holiday hell is designed for. You're not meant to white knuckle your way through December alone. A narcissist does not respect boundaries, but they respond to them. Your consistency becomes the wall they cannot climb. Your boundaries are not for him, they are for you. They are a structure for your nervous system to rest against. It's the framework your child learns safety from. And it's the reason that chaos does not consume your household. I just had a call with a client about this, but there is a level of grief that nobody talks about, and you're grieving the parent your child deserves, but they will never have. The grief of watching your child bond with someone who doesn't have the capacity to meet them emotionally. The grief of knowing that some lessons will be learned the hard way. The grief of feeling powerless while trying to protect them from everything. Letting go of this is not abandoning hope, it is choosing reality. Because the mother who accepts what's true becomes a better protector than the mother who clings to what is possible. When you let go of the fantasy, you stop being disappointed by the predictable. You stop waiting for growth that isn't coming. You stop trying to force cooperation that's not real. Your parenting becomes clearer, stronger, and calmer. You don't take the behavior personally. You're not responsible for their failures. You stop feeling guilty for their presence. You are not grieving the narcissist. You grieve the childhood your baby should have had. And acknowledging that grief is what makes you the cycle breaker. Your child doesn't need a perfect second parent. They need one emotionally intelligent parent who shows them what healthy love looks like. At some point, the co-parenting stops being about the narcissist entirely. It stops being about the messages and the scheduling and the court orders and emotional mental fuckery. Your power becomes who you are, not what he does. You become the emotional range. You become the repair instead of the reaction. You instill routines, traditions, stability, and safety. Your home is the home where your kids exhale. You have an opportunity to become the evidence that the cycle stops with you. One regulated parent changes the trajectory of a child's life, and that parent is you. This is not about coexisting with the narcissist. It's about outgrowing the version of you who is controlled by one. Co-parenting with a narcissist is not fair, it is not easy, but it will transform. When you choose to parallel parent, the range method, rebuilding yourself during the empty hours, helping your child with emotional intelligence, understanding your own identity over the battle, you build a foundation strong enough to withstand anything the narcissist throws at you. You don't need them to change. You just need to stay rooted, and you're going to do that every single day. With the holidays coming up, I created a special program just for that. Holiday Hell begins on December 3rd because the truth nobody talks about is that December is the most dangerous, destabilizing, emotionally unpredictable month for women who co-parent with narcissistic or abusive exes. If you are still inside the relationship, if you are trying to leave, if you are rebuilding your life after it, do not walk into December without protection. Not this year, not again. Inside of Holiday Hell, we will build your safety plan step by step. You have direct support and feedback with emotional regulation tools your nervous system can actually use. You get communication scripts that break conflict loops instead of feeding them. You will get co-regulation rituals to help protect your child's emotional landscape. You get to practice boundaries, and you will have structure instead of panic, stability instead of bracing, and a clear mind versus fear. And as a bonus, you get a private call with me. So that is 3 calls in total because your safety plan needs to match your exact situation and not somebody else's. It is $49 a month. You do not need to be ready to leave the relationship, but I do want you to be safe. December is coming either way. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast. And remember, when you raise your child in the stability that you created, you become the woman the cycle never saw coming.